How's everybody doing?
Great.
Good, good. Thank you for coming. I see a big crowd and it just makes me happy. I'm so nervous that people wouldn't show up, especially when you have a beautiful day like this. Can you hear me?
Do you have a microphone?
Do we have a microphone? I'll try to talk a little bit louder. How is that?
That's good.
Okay, I'll try to keep it at that level. If I start to talk a little softer, please let me know. Okay? Thank you for coming. Beautiful day, and you're here. Thank you. My disclaimer that I've said for the last two presentations, this is my third, I'm not a historian. I'm not a real estate lawyer. I'm just had some interest in history. My father, for I think it was 40 years, was the treasurer of the Cranston, Rhode Island Historical Society. I feel like I'm really blessed that he can look down and say, oh, you're finally part of a historical society. How I got mainly interested in Quonny after we moved here, we've been living here now for 8+ years full time, and we've owned the house for about 10 years. So there's many of you that have a lot more history than I do. And you can, at the end, correct me where I'm wrong. This book here, and I think we have some copies in the back for sale, and all of the proceeds help with the Historical Society, was written by Ann Doyle, and it shows, thank you, and it shows, you can see how I just love this book because I just have bookmarked it and everything that I reference. I've read this probably 5 times, maybe 10 times. Certain sections I've read 15 or 20 times. It outlines a lot of the historical houses in Quonny, and it shows where they are. And what's really neat, it comes with a little map that you can open it up, and it keys into that map. So this is very interesting. So we also have some other things back there for sale. But what's not for sale is what we gave you tonight. That map is a map that I will discuss in great detail, and you can take it home with you tonight. But we had it specially printed up for you folks to take home. Yeah, you're welcome. All right. The mysterious case of Samuel H. Davis. That's a view. The first view was looking eastward. This view is looking westward. So the Quonochontaug breachway would be down, not quite in this picture. I think they call this Fresh Pond. Sometimes it's the pond up top. Let me see if I get my pointer. This is Garden Pond. This is East Beach here. This is, sometimes they call this West Pond and East Pond, but this is Garden Pond, and I think they call this Fresh Pond now. This is a little road that cuts through. There's a little path right here called the Dingle. This road is part of the dirt road of Seabreeze, and that continues on. So tonight, you'll be doing a lot of this, kind of looking at these maps this way and that way. So half of my presentation will be on kind of the development, the maps. The other half will be on Samuel Davis. Okay? And before I do that, I'd like to start by, let's see if I can get this to work. No. So let's try this. That's a picture of him, and that's who we'll be talking about tonight. Samuel Davis. Who the hell is he? I have asked more people I've kind of been involved with Samuel H. Davis for the last 3 years or so. After my first presentation, I wondered, whatever happened to Samuel Davis? And he was a big developer in this area. He put together these plots that you have in front of you. He did a lot of land development. He was kind of like had the vision of Howard Thorpe. If some of you know from Central Beach, the name Howard Thorpe. He was a big developer in the area. So where I'm going to go with this tonight, I'm going to lay the background first, and then I'm going to tell you what I knew then. And I kind of didn't know a lot about Samuel Davis, but I did know a lot about the development of this area. What I know now is I'll share with you, and what I don't know. Thank you for the audience for coming. I'd like to point out a few people especially that helped me. Stu Reddish, he's from the Charlestown Historical Society. Nina Wright is from the Westerly Library. She's a researcher there, and she was a huge resource. Bob Capozzi is a QUIBA member, and he's a real estate attorney, and he is fantastic at reading these. All right? These are the deeds, and any real estate lawyer has to read these things, and they're very, very difficult to read, but he was a whiz, and believe it or not, I've started to learn how to read these things too. And it's very interesting once you can read through the detail of them. Okay, Tracy Marin, she can't make it tonight, but she is the present owner of the Buddington House. We'll be talking about that tonight. And then Bob Petrone, who's videotaping this, but he's supplied a lot of the photos, or some of the photos that are in this presentation. And my wife, where is she? Right here. She has put up with me on the beach. I talk to people, oh, do you know who Samuel Davis is? I talk to her about every single person, and she's kind of pulling me along. Ken, come on, we need to go. I've had him on my mind probably constantly for the last 2 months, but probably since December, I started to really get into this and start doing my research. That's what our table looks like for the last month and a half in the back. We have a little back room. That's what it looked like. Am I correct? Yeah.
Cleaned it up.
Yeah, I cleaned it up tonight. I actually changed this afternoon, made some more additions. I'd like to read this to you. Former judge sentenced, Westerly, Rhode Island, March 12th, 1934. 66 years old, today was given a 2-year prison sentence after pleading nolo to charges involving $50,000 alleged embezzlement from the estate of Hannah Crandall. Okay, so some of these things I'm emphasizing because they'll come up later on. Davis was sentenced to 2 years on each of the 4 counts, but Superior Judge Herbert Carpenter ruled they should be served concurrently. So just kind of put that in the back. I'm going to lay out the background. During my last 2 presentations, I asked myself, why did Samuel Davis sell all of his property? Let me take you back in time. Does anybody recognize that? Okay, that is the rock that doesn't quite look like that at the end of, on East Beach, at the end of Highland Road. It's before it got blown up, and you're looking eastward towards Blue Shutters. So Blue Shutters would be down below. So now we're looking eastward. Take a look at that house right there. Okay, look at the funny little roof. All right, now we're looking westward. We're looking up the beach. See the house right here? There's the same house. Look at all of the houses along the beach. And do you recognize those people? I think this is your mom. Yeah, I think that's Ann Doyle's mom right there. No, no. Ann didn't. All right. Back in 1895, there were 3 major communities. There was a community here called the East Beach community. You had the community here called the Heights, and then you had the West Beach community. So there are 3 different communities back in 1895. Note, there was only one way to get here, and note right in this area. So now I've just blown it up a little bit. Take a look at this area right here. It's called the Macomber Farm. Okay? And I'll start tonight with the Macomber Farm. There's one access road into it. There's a few little buildings right there. And the next land, we'll look at the Burdick land. So the Burdicks owned a lot of this area. Macomber's owning this area. And then there's the Kenyon land. The Kenyon land is right over here. And you can see the name Kenyon. You can see the name Macomber. And you can see lots of Burdick names along here. And they actually owned a lot of this area too. Everybody with me so far? Okay. The Macomber farm becomes the Buddington farm, and Benjamin Babcock, he sells it to Billings Macomber, about 137 acres. Macomber sells it to Buddington in 1905. John Buddington sells it to Samuel H. Davis. Okay? And note, Howard Thorpe isn't in the picture yet. He hasn't bought Central Beach area. So Howard Thorpe buys the Sheffield Farm property for Central Beach in 1924. Samuel Davis already owns in 1923. There's John Buddington standing in front of his house, and I'll show you a little bit more of that later. His 2 daughters, and there's the deed, just a picture of the deed, and I've showed you deeds. Macomber sells it to Buddington. But notice here, Billings Macomber, John W. Buddington, attorney. This isn't the same. Buddington was the attorney for Billings Macomber. And so they had a great relationship, a business relationship, I'm sure, and probably a good relationship, because Macomber eventually sells his land to Buddington. Fast forward a little bit to about March of 1923, and it might be April because it's listed as on that Buddington buys the farm in April, but on the map here it's showing that it's in March. So it's kind of weird that he's already, it sounds like maybe the transaction hadn't quite taken place yet, but he's already, Samuel Davis is already starting to map it out, plot it out. And here's what he bought. Remember I showed you all the cottages along the way? This is the map of 1923. This is the Atlantic Ocean. This area, all of these are cottages, and the way to get in, Blue Shutters, if you're familiar with Blue Shutters, would be sitting right about here. You would come down East Beach Road, access these cottages on this, what they call a highway. He called a highway. It was just a dirt path or a dirt road. And you had all of these cottages along here. So I would guess there's no road here yet. This is where Highland Road would come down to East Beach, right around here. So this is where that big rock was, right about there. The first view, you were looking down this way. The second view, you were looking up that way. All right? So far, so good? Yeah. All right. And that's the 6-page deed. There's 6 pages that when Buddington sold it to Davis, because it's very descriptive about going in between those lots. But there's 6 pages of that. I only showed 2. So then, that's what I knew then. This is what I know now. Before Samuel Davis buys the Buddington or the Macomber farm, Samuel Davis buys 2 important properties. Okay, so you got the Buddington farm kind of stacked in the middle of the Quonochontaug area, East Beach, Central Beach, not over to West Beach, but kind of in the middle. There was no road from East Beach over to West Beach. No road existed there. They may have been dirt paths. Samuel Davis buys a small meadow from Hazard Burdick. Remember the circles I showed you? The Burdick property was over to the east. Then the Macomber property was kind of right in the middle. Samuel Davis buys a small meadow from Hazard Burdick, about 4 acres, and it's written right here, 4 acres, and a lot of legal description. He buys it for $10 and other valuable considerations. I'm having a feeling, because that's what they all say. In fact, some of the Samuel Davis deeds say $1 and valuable considerations, because probably he didn't want to pay the taxes. That's my guess, but I don't know that. I'm not a state attorney. Okay. A real estate attorney. This land is bordering on East Beach Road. Then he buys this property. He buys this, and this road right here is West Beach Road. He buys 42 acres from the Kenyons. Remember the little circles? This was the 3rd little circles, okay? Bordering West Beach Road. Why is this important? I'll show you. This is the first, remember, this is not developed at all when he buys it. There's nothing there. There's a meadow. All of this land right here is owned by the Burdicks. He buys from Samuel Davis buys from Hazard Burdick that little square right there. 4 acres plus or minus, it said it right in the deed. And when I measured that out, it came, and I calculated it with all the measurements, it came out to 3.7566. So that's the 4 acres that he bought. And in another reading, I think, but I can't verify this because it's not in the deed, for $500. So all of those lots there, he buys for $500. That's the first piece he buys in 1922, December. The second piece he bought from the Kenyons is that square right there. Remember I just showed you that map a minute ago? and it was a kind of a triangle-y shape. So there it is right there. Take a guess where the John Buddington land is. Right in the middle. Why is that important? You see, there's a road now. It's called Ocean View Ave. It's no longer called Ocean View Ave, it's called Seabreeze. Okay? So on this map, it says Ocean View Ave, and it stops right there. This area right here is where the dingle goes through, but this area is still owned by Hazard Burdick. So Hazard sells that little piece right there to Samuel Davis. Samuel Davis then has then he buys that piece. He buys about I don't know this exactly because I did the best I could to find the records. I'd say it's less than 137 acres because some of these lots have then been sold off. But he buys that middle piece from John Buddington. He doesn't buy some of these lots in here already belong to somebody, but right in the deed, you've got this house, which is Tracy's house. The barn, her house is still right there. The lot across the street was used as a garden. So right in the deed, it says John Buddington will sell all of his property except that and that. This is in that 6-page deed that I showed you. So he doesn't sell the farmhouse nor the lot beside. Some of you might know Bob Pompey. He just sold his house. That's where his house sits. Tracy's house is right here. All of these lots were previously owned, but this is kind of neat. Yes, Leah.
Does it go through the middle of two ponds? The property that you...
Yep. Yes. And not only that, that's a good point. The question was, does it go through the middle of the two ponds? That's where the property lines were. And the Buddington property right along here, there's a stone wall. Our property is right in this area, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. There's a stone wall, still exists right there. This stone wall goes back this far, just like that, and there may be remnants. Pat, your house is right about here, and is there any remnants of a stone wall behind those properties back there? Where's Pat? Yeah, okay. Yeah, oh, that's right. Julie and, yeah, Jim. Okay, sure. Your property would be, I would say, right about there. Am I right? Yeah. Okay, so there's a stone wall that's back here someplace. There's a little piece of property right there that I talked to Bob Capozzi about, and his land is right here. And Bruce, I saw Bruce is right about there. Where's Bruce? Yeah, is that right? Yeah, I'd say right about there someplace. Yeah, maybe here. This is the property that Bob Capozzi has, Bruce has. So, there it is. So there's the whole piece. This is the only part that I could never figure out, nor could Bob figure out. The only explanation I've got is that Samuel Davis didn't own it, but maybe had a little side deal with Burdick and decided to plat it out, because platting this all out costs money. It costs money to hire a surveyor to do all of this. There was big money invested in having this all surveyed, having all these points made. Take a look at these right here. These lots right here, look at the pond there. They go right into the pond, all right? They go into the pond because my guess back then, we'll just fill the pond up. You know, we'll have some lots back here. So there's rows of house. There's lots that he put in between here, and I could have shown you that a little bit better on one of the other slides, but there are lots in between those houses that he counted. There's around 600, over 600 lots right there. Yes?
Ken, I was wondering, along the beach there, is the property line mean high tide?
Yes, in fact, some of it right when some of the drawings you can see where it says mean high tide, and some it doesn't. But there was a little buffer in front of these houses. This doesn't show it as well. Okay. Let me see. So he's put lots in between here. He's put lots in between here. He came up with this modest development in March. So this is March 2023. The map that you've got and the map I've been showing is 3 years later. So this was his original development. So there's the Burdick land, the meadow. It was referred to as Sammy's Meadow in one of the readings I was doing. Sammy's Meadow, because there wasn't a lot of development back then. Because what happens in 6 years? 1929. Yeah, okay. So just kind of keep that in the back, because that'll come back. Okay? So far so good? Here, this is a nice map because it actually shows, there's the Buddington farm. It goes, and it shows it right here. This little triangle here is basically the Kenyon area. So there's the Kenyon area. Notice this. 1, 2, 3 lots between Tracy's house, the original Buddington farm, and down to the corner. In the map that you've got, he decides to become a little bit more greedy. So he cuts those in half. And if you look at your map closely, you might need my magnifying glass, there are 6 lots there. I just saw that tonight, so it's kind of interesting. On this map, it says this land here, it's written right there, you can't see it, it says heirs of Aaron Lucas. That's basically the Sheffield farm. That's what, and it says on this map, it says heirs of Aaron Lucas. It's before Howard Thorpe. Howard Thorpe eventually buys all of this, and then he combines that with it, but you'll see that later. So, what you've got in front of you is this map right here. It's called the Plat of Quonochontaug Highlands at Quonochontaug Beach, Rhode Island, property of Samuel H. Davis, dated February 1926. This is important a little bit later. This is the map that you've got in front of you. That's a blow-up. That's not a blow-up of it. It's just a photograph that I took of it. There's the lots right into the pond. So this is very, very clear here. So, Frank, you had asked about, see, there's the little buffer between here. But see, this road comes all the way down. So he left a little buffer here, but didn't here. Again, I'm not sure why. Blue shutters would be over here someplace. This is West Beach Road. Thank you, East Beach Road. You're paying attention. That was a test. And West Beach Road would be out of this frame. There's me. And this is the town hall. This is, if anybody wants to go up to the town hall, you can go up there. Then you have access to the vault. All of these records. You see this little case right there? That little case is what I've just pulled out behind this photo. So these are sleeves. You slide the sleeve out, and that map right there is the section, just one section, that has to be unfolded. So don't tell anybody up at the town hall. 3 years ago, I unfolded that, and I took those photographs that you just saw. I asked them this time, and they said, no, we don't want you to open it up again because it's getting too frail. But that's the original blueprint of the map that Samuel Davis did. And it's in there, and it's all folded up. So there it is. Why is that important? This says right there, anybody recognize that address? 208 Seabreeze Drive. Sheila, do you know that address? That's where we live. This is our deed. Bob Capozzi, real estate attorney, says on all of these properties, go to your deed and see if it's on your deed. So I went to my deed, and this is this is one of the descriptions in the deed. There's further descriptions, but it says, Town of Charleston, County of Washington, State of Rhode Island, particularly bounded and described on Exhibit A, attached to within. That's my property. And I found out there's two maps. There's the assessor's map, and then there's the land description map. The land description map up at the town hall is Samuel Davis's land description map. So that's my address. That's the assessor's map. The assessor's map is used for what? Taxes. Okay, so that's up to date. The land description map, was a lot of effort was put into that. That's Samuel Davis's map. And look at this. Let me just do one more. This is Exhibit A. This is the second page of, maybe the third page of my deed that I opened up to see what it looked like. It says, certain tract of land improvements, Quonochontaug Beach, so-called Charlestown, Rhode Island, State of Rhode Island, shown here delineated as lots number 395, 6, 7, 8, 9, 400. So our piece of land, which we're fortunate enough to have, were all of these lots that were bounded together, and it says it right here, plat of Quonochontaug Highlands at Quonochontaug Beach, property of Samuel Davis, and there's the surveyor, and February 1926. That's the map you've got in front of you. So it ties, the assessor's map is tied to that map that they're still using. Who the hell is Samuel Davis? Everybody should know him. We don't know him. Who is he? Remember, I put that up? All right. So that's the first half. The second half gets more interesting. Samuel H. Davis. He was a reverend. He was born November 26, 1867 in Jane Lou, West Virginia. That will be important a little bit later. He's buried in Lost Creek, West Virginia, about 5 miles away from where he was born. He happens to be buried in the Seventh-day Baptist Church Cemetery. His father's name was Hoffman, thus his middle name is Hoffman, so his father's name was Hoffman. His father's mother's name was Hoffman, and thus his middle name. Nina is his wife, and they had 2 children. One, the first one they adopted, and the second is of their children. That's his dad. He was a reverend, a minister in West Virginia, and his mother. And the Davises from Westerly were, not that it was important, but they were related to the, Samuel Davis was related to the Davises in Westerly, and the family has a very, very long line of Seventh-day Baptist ministers. Reverend William Davis was born in 1663, and that will become more clear why later. I was fortunate enough to meet with Nina Wright, and she's a researcher at the Westerly Library. If you ever need to do any type of research, a historical research, she is an unbelievable resource, and she found this book for me right in these bookshelves. It's called The First 100 Years of the Pawcatuck Seventh-day Baptist Church. It's in Westerly. It's called Quonochontaug, but it's in Westerly. When you open the book, that's what the church looked like. If you drive by it today, that's what the church looks like. There's not too much difference. If you know where McQuaid's grocery store is, if you've got McQuaid's to your left and you're headed out to Watch Hill and you go 2 buildings, that's where the church is. So it's right there in Westerly, and it's called the Quonochontaug Seventh-day Baptist Church. I didn't go inside. At some point when I have a little bit more time, maybe I will. In that book, we've got a really interesting account of him. Samuel Davis was called to the Westerly Church in 1896, and he was in the temperance movement, the Prohibition temperance movement back then. Big speaker. He went around the country, actually, and gave talks, and he was a great talker. He was a great public speaker. He was a tireless worker. He believed in things could be done. He proceeded to do them. A tireless worker. He was privileged to see the Quonochontaug Church when they had 100 members. It was just this enthusiastic, I think probably a very interesting person. Here's what I want to show you here. We've got names that were going, the 400 people going to church. We've got Governor Utter. We've got the Burdicks. Okay, the Burdicks are going to the church. The Crandalls are going to the church. Do you remember anything about the Crandalls that we've already read? You remember the little newspaper clipping? Okay. In later years, he settled in Westerly and followed the real estate business and practice of law. Kind of interesting. Everything you read about him here, and it goes on to a nice story, the next page. It's just fascinating. The book was written in 1940, so it's after he gets sentenced. So it's kind of interesting. They didn't want to publish anything negative. And I have a feeling, after reading this a few times, I think most of this information was probably provided by his wife. And I can talk to you about that at length later, but it's interesting. Shh. His life and career: he attends Salem Academy when he's younger. He attends Alfred University in Alfred, New York. There's a huge population of people that are going back and forth from Alfred University, from Westerly area, back and forth. So if you look at the names around Alfred University, there are a lot of the same names that are down here in Westerly. And they're going Burdicks, Crandalls, Davises. One of the Davises, one of his brothers, is actually the minister in Alfred in the Seventh-day Baptist Church. So, as I already said, he was called to be a minister between 1896 to 1902 at the Quonochontaug. At that time, he attends Yale University Divinity School, and he graduates. He was there, I think, 7 years. Then he attends Boston University Law School. He goes back into the Prohibition movement and the temperance movement, and then he wants to get a law degree. So he's in the class of 1908. He's a state representative here in Rhode Island. I don't know whether he was a representative or a senator, but he was in the state legislature. He lives at 2 houses in Westerly. One, I looked it up, and it was a few blocks from the church. And then this here, I'll show a picture of it in a little bit. he starts a small, in his attorney business, he starts a small real estate, or he gets involved in real estate. Samuel Davis, and guess who? Burdick. Okay, so these are advertisements. Look at Watch Hill, cottages for rent, prices $500 to $2,500. What do you think that is? For the summer. That's the whole summer. That's not a week. Okay. All right. Prices. Okay. And then so it's kind of just interesting to look at these prices of things. Okay. One of the most difficult things that I had in my research, because Samuel Davis was a trusted minister, a lawyer, his name appears thousands of times in the Westerly Sun. And you can do a search on it, but you come up with thousands of them because he was a real estate attorney, he was on people's wills, he was an executor, a conservator, and so anytime something was done, his name came up as being part of that getting a will taken care of. So it's difficult to find these little pieces of information. So this is just transfer of land records. His name shows up a number of times in this, but literally thousands of times. And so you're trying to read through this. Oh, the search engine. And it is kind of a fun thing to do, but you go down many rabbit holes. You put his name in, and it brings you to the page, the newspaper page, the full page. And so then you can expand it, enlarge it. And so you're searching for the name, then you find his name here, there, and everywhere. But it's a very laborious, you can't just say, okay, Samuel H. Davis and Quonochontaug. I wasn't able to do that. Nina was showing me that it can be done, but it cuts it down from 1,200 pages to maybe 700 pages or 600 pages. So I was not able to go through all of the information, but I did find this. So far, so good? Still with me? Okay, good. He lives at Granite Street, as I said. There's the house. Okay, a nice house. This house, if I was driving by it, I would stop at the traffic light right here, and straight ahead is Wilcox Park. Okay, so that's the traffic, the lines going up. You're looking at if I'm right here on the road, I'm looking at Wilcox Park right there. So next time you come to the traffic light and you're headed into Westerly, stop and look to your left. There it is. That was his home. And that's, I think, where he worked too. He had Boy Scout meetings there. He was part of lots and lots of different organizations. Things start to fall apart. Do you notice the date? This is the newspaper. 1933. What's just happened a year or two before that? The crash. Okay. Westerly Sun. Attorneys from Alfred University and Milton College ask for the removal of Samuel Davis as the executor to Hannah Crandall's estate. Okay, so two colleges get wondering. I mean, this is what I found, and I'm reading through many different articles of saying they want him removed from the estate of this person, from that person. But I think this is one of the big ones. Alfred University and Milton College, Hannah Crandall has endowed money to the colleges. The colleges are saying, hey, she's passed away. Where's our endowment? They keep trying to contact Samuel Davis and says, hey, where's our money? Where's our money? What has Samuel Davis done in 1923? He's bought a lot of real estate, right? He's bought a lot of real estate. All right, he's bought, he's bought tons of real estate. He's in the real estate business, and things are booming before 1929. Real estate's bustling, and he sees, I can buy this, I can plot it out. I'll spend money getting it all platted out, and then I'll start to sell lots. 1929 comes along. Oh, to be able to finance that, what do you do if you don't have the money? And you're a real estate, and you're an attorney handling somebody who's very, very, very wealthy. Maybe you skim a little off the top to pay for the real estate. I'll get to that later. Okay. This is kind of interesting. Rumored Samuel Davis will surrender to court. The publication states that he has been reported that Mr. Davis has been in hiding somewhere near Westerly. Where do you think he was? He's got a good friend, Burdick. He's probably right down here at the Burdick farm. That's my guess. I mean, he might have been having a house here at that point. He's in hiding because he's going to be sentenced, and they can't find him. Samuel Davis surrenders to the court and is sentenced on 4 separate counts. All right. During his court case, he has to, and I'm not a legal person, so I don't understand a lot of this stuff, but I'll read this, okay? I've just highlighted a little area, but this is what his court case in front of the judge, the attorney general there is saying this is the case against him, and then he has his lawyer saying, hey, this is what happened. Attorney John Dunn, Attorney John Dunn, Davis made a plea for leniency, and he spoke in part as follows. He has not been in hiding, and he has not at any time since the indictment done anything else but to make his way to Westerly as fast as he could to surrender. And then so his attorney is saying, his name is Dunn, Dunn's Corner, probably, yeah. The crimes sound, especially to the layman's ears, as one involving the deliberate taking, and I'm trying to read this because it's hard, taking through scheming and planning and cunning the money that belongs to another. I know there never was in the soul of Samuel H. Davis the slight intention to deprive any person of a single farthing. What's a farthing? It's a portion of a penny. Okay, so not a single farthing that belonged to them. Commencing with 1929, the most devastating depression that ever struck this country. This defendant in 1929 believed that he had equity in property in the community in excess of $250,000. So he's thinking, this is what his attorney is arguing. Look, Samuel Davis, before the Depression, he's feeling he's got $250,000 in property, in value, in equity. Values sank to I'm skipping a lot. Values sank to unheard of depths. This defendant, in an endeavor to sell, accumulating many of the many of the hard years that is toiling to make money. Our poor defendant, Samuel, was unable to make good on what he believed was borrowing, but for which he is now charged with a crime. So it's kind of interesting. His attorney's arguing that way. But wait till you hear this. The Attorney General says, this is the person who is kind of fighting for him. He has held high office in the state of Rhode Island. These are quotes. He has admitted guilt. He's okay. He has brought shame to himself, and to some extent, shame upon the honorable profession of the law. I might state that I do not think his conduct should be reflective upon the brother members of the bar, because the fact that the majority of lawyers are honest and seldom betray their trust. Okay? And then it goes on and on. I mean, there's 2 or 3 paragraphs about this. And then in the end, listen to this. He's talking to the judge. I now move to sentence, not a pleasant duty of yours, Your Honor, because I believe you have known the defendant even longer than I, perhaps more intimately. So the judge, of course, knows Samuel Davis. The Attorney General knows Samuel Davis. They all know him. His attorneys are saying, hey, look, he's not a bad guy. He was a Baptist minister. Okay. So the judge says, in the article, the judge says, yeah, I got to do something. Samuel Davis is sentenced to 2 years in jail. And here's what he's in. And this only comes out now. There was one from Hannah Crandall, larceny from the estate, but then there was, I guess these, and I don't know the legal stuff behind it, but they were like sealed indictments. They called them, in this newspaper article, secret indictments. He also embezzled from Janet Crandall, $6,000. He embezzled from Charles and Peebo Crandall, $1,200. He also embezzles from the Seventh-day Baptist Ministry, where he was the treasurer. Of course, scoop up some of that money. So, how much? $60,000. What's that worth today? I asked Google. $1,400,000, $1.5 million he embezzles. In the court, when I was reading through that, his lawyers were also arguing, look, he handles millions of dollars in people's estates. And he said, he didn't take that much. He's an honest man. And I'm reading through it. It's just like, oh, where does this stuff come from? Okay. Going back, John Buddington sells land to Samuel Davis. Howard Thorpe buys the Sheffield farm in 1924, a year later. Samuel Davis sells one lot to Howard Thorpe. I'm just following the deeds. He sells one lot to Howard Thorpe, and in that, and this is in 1925, before the shit hits the fan. Samuel Davis sells one lot to Howard Thorpe. Though in the deed it says you can put one small cottage or a boathouse, but you can't sell or serve alcohol. Remember, he was in the temperance movement. But right in the deed it says that. it can't manufacture, sell, or serve alcoholic beverage from this. I couldn't figure out the coordinates on this because it's from this person's estate to that person's to a hole in a rock that is measured 300 feet. But it sounded like a small pathway leading to Nitigrit, which might possibly be what we call Lot 606, the little canoe area. In East Beach, we have a little access to get into Nitigrit Pond. So, but I'm not certain on that. But it was just interesting to read the deed and find out about the alcohol part of it. Can I hold your question? Thank you, Leah. Okay. John Buddington. John Buddington, sells originally the land, but there's another deed. John Buddington, maybe he's getting a little nervous about this Samuel Davis. I don't really know, but he still owns 2 lots, and he gets deeded rights to be able to walk and drive a vehicle to the beach, to get down to the beach. And so maybe in 1928, John Buddington, who still owns the property, the Buddington Farm, where Tracy Marion lives now, it's right in the deed saying that he has rights to be able to walk and drive to the beach. And they put that, he had that deed written up in 1928. In 1932, remember, he's sentenced in 1932, Davis forecloses. Remember, he's sentenced in 1934. The next year, Samuel Davis forecloses. So maybe he's trying to have some redemption. Maybe he's trying to sell some of his land to be able to pay back to Charlestown Estates. Who's Charlestown Estates? Howard Thorpe. So he sells, but now it's Charlestown Estates, but that's Howard Thorpe. This is what he sells it for. 617 lots for the sum of $3,000, which works out to be about $4.86 per lot is what Howard Thorpe buys it for. So sometimes you hear the old stories, oh, my father bought that land for $500. Howard Thorpe bought that land for $4.86. Okay, so, but it is what it is. Like now the lots sell for $1 million. For anybody who doesn't know, they'll probably sell anywhere between $500,000 and $1 million. So that's where we're at. Okay. Poor Samuel, he's disbarred from practicing law on April 21st. He doesn't even show up, or he doesn't even send his attorneys to the hearing. He doesn't even want to go in, and so he doesn't show up for the disbarment or have any argument against it. So he gets disbarred. And here we go. My home and my wife's home city. Samuel Davis. Where is his address? State prison. Okay. Where? Cranston, Rhode Island. That's where my wife and I grew up. Cranston, Rhode, not in the state prison. All right. This is kind of interesting, too. The person tabulating this card, there might be a date, because sometimes it's noted, I think it's that he was born in the 28th. His twin brother was born a day different than, in the records that I found. And maybe that happens. I don't know biology, and I don't know what happened back then, but sometimes there's a day difference. So it was kind of interesting that the date was a little bit off on that. Yeah. All right. Samuel Davis. He's buried, like I told you, 5 miles from where he was born, in the Seventh-day Baptist Church Cemetery in Lost Creek, the same cemetery where his parents and 2 brothers And then one of the other brothers is buried in the Alfred College, over near Alfred College, where I think he was a minister there. Okay? What I don't know. After Samuel goes to prison, he doesn't get divorced from his wife. He just separates from her, and he spends time in Daytona, Florida, and with his two daughters in Connecticut, and I can't recall the other state, but winters he'd come up and spend time with his daughters. He's never together with his wife anymore. And I don't know anything else other than that. Between the time of when he went to prison, he was 66 years old. Oh, and so he was there only for 2 years. The judge found him leniency, and instead of he was sentenced for 2 years in prison for all 4 crimes, but the judge said you could serve them concurrently. So he only goes to prison for 2 years, gets out of prison, he's 68 years old, and then he goes down to Florida. Oh, I did remember reading a brother lived down in Daytona too, so maybe he spent time down at his brother's place, and then he passes away. He travels up, he's got some type of, at 94 years old, he travels up and he passes away in the hands of one of the Seventh-day Baptist ministers, and they bury him in probably the same plot or in the same cemetery area as his parents and 2 brothers. And that's all I've got to say. The end. How am I doing? I went a little over. I'm sorry.